Welcome back to another video. This one's going to be on bamboo bases, as you can see. It's fun to say that, bamboo bases. This is a quick look at the finished product, finished piece, so you can see what we're going to end up with. So if you don't like the look of it, you can turn the video off now, I suppose. And if you do, stick around and we'll see how it's done. Okay, so the first thing we've got here is we've got some bits that I've 3D printed from Adamant Arsenal. There's some bamboo bits, and there's some basing bits. I think they're called the slate piles. And these all came out really nicely. I scaled the bamboo down a little bit. As you can see, we've got some blue tack on the base, and this is just to see where the console is going to sit. It's important to make sure that the overall look of the base, the composition of it, I suppose, looks right with the model on there before we glue anything down permanently. And then we're just going to take some super glue and just going to take them off one by one and glue them back down into the position they were. And every time you stick a piece down, you want to just check again with the model to make sure that it fits onto the base and it's in the position that you're happy with. Because with super glue, you've got a little bit of working time with it, but you do need to be fairly quick with it. Okay, everything's glued down and has been left to dry and secure. Now we're going to use some of this desert sand diorama effects texture paste from Vallejo. Other texture pastes are available. You can use any of them. I like this one because it's got a nice grit level and I can like pile it up. And the main reason we're using this instead of PVA glue for this step is because I want to fill in all of the gaps around where the 3D prints meet the base. So I'm putting it on fairly thick here. You don't need to worry too much about the brush strokes in this because we're going to be covering this up in a second. And we're going to be using the other property of this, which is that it's quite adhesive, quite sticky, to add more texture on top of it. Okay, so we've done this across the whole base now. And like I said, it doesn't matter too much about the brush strokes, but try and avoid them where you can. What we're going to do now is we're just going to push the model down into this to create like a bit of an indent, so when we stick them on later, it's going to be a better surface area for us to stick into the base. And then what we've got while the texture base is still wet is we're going to put some some texture over the top of it. And this is a mix of cocoa fiber, it's dried herbs, I think it was mixed herbs, and some tea. I just ripped open a tea bag and threw that into the box and then mixed it all together. And what we're going to do is just going to sprinkle this over the top of everything. It's a bit indecisive here whether I was going to just pour it over or sprinkle it, but I'm going to go with the sprinkle method. We're not going to push it down, we're just going to drop it all over so that there's little fibres and stuff stick up in all directions. And it's going to give us a very natural look because all of these materials are natural materials. You can add anything to this really, as long as they are natural materials. You could crush with some leaves, anything you wanted really. Anyway, like I said, sprinkle this all over the top of it and then we're just going to knock it off very gently. And that'll be done. We're going to leave it to dry then, probably overnight. Unless you've got somewhere warm, you can leave it. I wouldn't blast it with a hairdryer or anything, because again, you'll blow all of this off. Okay, this has been left overnight, probably longer than that to be fair. And it's all dried now, stuck to the texture base. As you can see here, I'm struggling to get the slant off. Good sign, means it's not going to fall off. But what we're going to do now is we're going to seal it all because it's still fairly loose and it will fall off. You can see bits of it falling off on my hand there. What we're going to do here is we're going to get a mix of PVA glue, water, and a little tiny bit of dish soap wash. And we're just going to mix that all up, and then we're just going to put it all over the base. And the dish soap is you can use isopropyl alcohol for this. It works a little bit better. But it's just to break up the surface tension so it spreads out easier. Capillary action. Okay, the mix is mixed. And as you can see, we're just going to put it all over everything, like I said. And we're going to be fairly careful because, like I said, everything's still loose. We're just going to let it run on there. We're going to go fairly thick with it. And again, this is going to need a lot of control. You probably can do this one with a hairdryer because it's going to be held down by the liquid. Again, be careful with it. Probably best to just leave it overnight somewhere warm. Okay, time to paint. I've primed it black and then given it a quick zenithal of white. And then we're going to go in, the first thing we're going to do is paint the stalks. And we're going to use Mornfine Brown mixed with a dot of black into it. A couple of dots of black just to desaturate it a bit. Because we don't want it to be too bright. We're going for quite a dark bamboo forest. I'll show you some reference pictures that I was looking at when I painted this. I'll put them up on the screen now. They seem to be very vibrant green. And then the trunks, the stalks of the bamboo seem to have some green tones to them. Some of them are more yellow, I think, depending on if they're drying out or not. But yeah, we want the green to be the main focal point, so we're desaturating the colours on the stalks. Anyway, as I've been talking, you can see in the background I have just been painting the stalks with this colour. I'm using an airbrush for this just because I've got it and it's a tool that I can use, but you can definitely do this with a paintbrush, that's not a problem. However, with the airbrush you do get this bit of overspray onto everything, including the base, and that's actually helpful for us. And every colour we're going to be using is we are going to be just spraying a bit of it onto the base and just to add to the colour palette. I'm also going to be spraying the flying stand with this brown, so it kind of disguises it a little bit. Okay, so we're going to go in now with some Scrag Brown. Again, mixed a little bit, a couple of dots of black into it. You don't need very much, just to desaturate it a little bit. I will be putting this over the base as well. I've got some left in my airbrush. But what we're going to be doing with this one is we're going to be aiming for the joints in the bamboo. I think they're called joints. It was where the bamboo joins the other bits of bamboo, so probably joints. And we're doing this because I want to just highlight those areas. I'm not going to be putting too much detail into the bamboo stalks, and this is probably going to be the only highlight they really get. Okay, the stems, stalks, branches, whatever they're called, are done. And we're going to start work onto the leaves and the green bits. We're going to start off with some Lauren Forest. I'm not mixing anything else into this. This is just straight Lauren Forest. It's quite thin because I want to keep the zenithal highlight, and I also want to keep a bit of that brown undertone in some of the leaves that we've got from the overspray. That's the beauty of using the airbrush here. Again, with this green, we're going to get some overspray onto the branches, onto the stems, which is really good because it's gonna like sell a natural look where it's all kind of growing from the same plant and the colours are mixing together on it. What we're going to do here is we're just going to go top down over all the leaves, make sure we cover them all up, and we'll probably give them a couple of coats of this as well. Okay, next up we are going to give the leaves a quick highlight, and we're going to do this with a 50-50 mix of ice yellow and the Lauren Forest. You'll see in a minute I'm going to test my airbrush on my hand first quickly. I'm doing this just to make sure the consistency of the paint is correct. I've got no clogs or anything in the front of it because I don't want it all just coming out really fast or like speckly. This is more apparent with lighter colours. And what I'm doing here is I'm just spraying the centre of each one of these leaves. Now, I will be giving them another highlight later on. This is just to build some volumes in them. Everybody's favourite step, the dry brush. I've got a makeup brush here and it's got some very soft bristles. I've dampened them a little bit because I don't want it to be chalky. And the reason I've gone with a very soft brush is because this model is very delicate. They're quite thin 3D prints. I've got a canvas board there which I find perfect for dry brushing. And I'm going to make a mix of ice yellow and the Lauren Forest. And you can see here that I'm just kind of experimenting and mixing them together into like a colour that I want. Okay, you all know how to dry brush. But what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to hit the leaves. If I hit branches, the stems, whatever they're called, I still haven't decided. That's perfectly fine. If I hit the rocks, also okay. If I hit the base, no problem. They're all just happy little accidents, as our prof would say. So yeah, we're just going to go across the whole thing and dry brush off the leaves. One quick step that I didn't show is I did a quick dry brush of deck tan over the rocks. I didn't clean the paintbrush, there was still some green in it. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use some Dark Angels green contrast paint. And I've thinned this down 50-50 with contrast medium. But as you can see here, I decided that it's still too thick. And so what I'm doing is I'm just dipping my paintbrush into my water pot, which is fairly clean water, and I'm just using it to dilute the paint on the model. And with this, I'm going to go over the entire model, everything, the whole base, the ground, the rocks, the branches, the brown bits, the leaves, everything, because I want to tie everything we've done so far together. Okay, that has dried. It's all looking a little bit drab at the minute. So I want to liven things up a bit. And we're going to do that with some lime green. This will really punch up the vibrancy. So what I've done is I've thinned this really down into like a filter, like 5 to 6 parts to 1 part paint. And I've loaded up my paintbrush with it. And then an important step here is to wick as much of it off as you can on the paper towel. What I wicked off there wasn't actually enough. It's still too much paint, as you can see on the paintbrush. So I do go off and wick some more off. And what I'm doing with this is where the dry brush highlighted everything and then the contrast paint shaded everything. This is going to go over, I think, if the filter is very vibrant green. And it's going to draw them all together and it's going to make it look just a lot more like a living jungle, a bamboo jungle, I suppose. And so I am going to touch this onto some of the brown bits and some of the rocks and some of the ground. I'm just going to put this kind of a bit everywhere, mostly on the leaves though. I'm not putting it all over the brown and all over the rocks and all over the green. Just enough to tie it into the leaves to make it look like it's all part of the same environment. And you can already see that it's much more vibrant than the bamboo next to it. Okay, everything's looking a lot more vibrant now. It's got that very emerald, Southeast Asian, Vietnam forest vibe to it, which is what we're going for. We're going to go with one last highlight though, just to really make them pop. And this is probably a 75%, 25% mix of ice yellow and the lime green. 25% being the lime green. And we're just going to use this to highlight the tips of the leaves and the top shoots where the fresh bamboo is growing from. We're also going to use this very sparingly on the stems and the brown stems, just to highlight around the joints, just very small dots here and there. Next step is we are going to do a very quick highlight on the rocks. We've just mixed in some deck tan to that previous mix, just to really lighten it. And I'm just going to do some fairly random organic highlights across these rocks, just to make them look like they're very worn down and like the jungle's overtaken them. The penultimate step, we're going to go with some dirty down moss. I've never used this before, but I thought it would fit the theme of the base. So you want to keep it really warm. This has been in my pocket for about 20 minutes, half an hour when I opened it up here. You also want to really give it a good shake. You want to make sure that the ball in there, the ball bearing is loose and rattling about in there nicely. And then I'm just going to use this straight from the pot, and I'm just going to mostly focus it on the rocks and around the base and just splotch it around. See what happens, because I'm not really sure how this is going to turn out. I ended up doing a couple of coats of this in certain places to make it a bit darker. But you'll see that in the final results. And then the very last step, the best step of painting any base, painting the black rim on it. And there we have it, the final results. Thank you very much for sticking around this long. If you liked the video, like it. If you didn't, don't like it. If you could share it, comment, all of it would be amazing. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya!